with us on this Tuesday edition of Ed Schultz News and Commentary. In the last 48 hours, we have had another chapter in the Republican Party of lies and ignorance. The lies, of course, with Donald Trump, the ignorance again with Ben Carson. Now, these two gentlemen are still leading all the other candidates in the Republican field, and it just does them justice, doesn't it? It all starts with Trump. Trump is claiming that he saw thousands of people cheering over in New Jersey, and they were Muslims, of course, Arab population. He saw thousands of people cheering when the buildings came down in Lower Manhattan on September 11th, 2001. This is the comment that started it all.
I watched when the World Trade Center came tumbling down, and I watched in Jersey City, New Jersey, where thousands and thousands of people were cheering.
Thousands and thousands of people were cheering. He watched it. Now, he said that over the weekend down in Alabama. Maybe he thought that what he says in Alabama doesn't go nationwide. Guess what? It does. So Trump on ABC's This Week, a couple of days ago on Sunday, with George Stephanopoulos, doubled down.
You know, the police say that didn't happen, and all those rumors have been on the internet for some time. So did you misspeak yesterday?
Happen. I saw it. It was
you
on
saw
television.
that with your own eyes?
George, it did happen. There were people that were cheering in the other side of New Jersey where you have large Arab populations. They were cheering as the World Trade Center came down. I know it might be not politically correct for you to talk about it, but there were people cheering as that building came down, as those buildings came down.
Mr. Trump, this is not about political correctness. This is about the truth. Did it actually happen? I would venture to say that there probably were some people of the non-Christian faith in this country that thought it was okay that we got hit. I'm not going to, I'm guessing there, speculating as other Americans are. But thousands upon thousands, rooftop parties, tailgating in New Jersey. Come on, Mr. Trump. You saw it? Oh, you saw the reports. What reports? This is it's unacceptable. There is no one. Any accredited journalistic outfit can back that up. And he continues to get away with it, and he continues to poll very well. So now it enters the Bernie Sanders campaign. He's on CNN yesterday being asked about what Donald Trump says. Imagine this. Bernie Sanders is behind Hillary Clinton. He's trying to win the nomination. He's doing better in Iowa. He's leading in New Hampshire. There's a lot of people that are doing groundswell work for Bernie Sanders. It's amazing. It is a movement. He's not getting the media attention that Trump's getting. And when he does get interviewed, he's asked about Trump. Here it is.
Well, I think you're right. I have not heard any evidence of this happening. I don't know where Mr. Trump gets his evidence, what he has seen, but I don't think anybody else in America has seen it. And what I get concerned about, Brooke, is this growth of Islamophobia in this country, this desire to win votes by scapegoating a group of people, which is not what America is supposed to be about. So I think, once again, Mr. Trump is missing the boat.
Okay, so those are the lies of the Republican Party. Now let's talk about the ignorance, and it's the doctor again. In an interview, well, first of all, Dr. Carson, Ben Carson, said he also saw the videotape. He also knew that there were Arab people and Muslims who were cheering because the buildings came down on September 11th, 2001. He saw it too. But then later in the day, he recanted it. He said, I was talking about the people over in Palestine who were going nuts over the whole deal and cheering about it. So he backed away from that. But there's another dandy out there for Mr. Carson. In an interview that was done on Sunday, Mr. Carson said that he really appreciated and really looked up to Thomas Jefferson and the way he wrote the Constitution.
I'm particularly impressed with Thomas Jefferson, who seemed to have very deep insight into the way that people would react, and tried to craft our Constitution in a way that it would control people's natural tendencies and control the natural growth of the government. But he said that a time would come when the people would become less vigilant. And as a result of that, the government would grow, would infiltrate, and would begin to dominate. But
just shut up. Just shut up. Just shut up. Ben Carson is an absolute idiot again. Thomas Jefferson was the ambassador to France when the convention was taking place. Thomas Jefferson did not write the United States Constitution. It was a document that was put together by some of the other founding fathers, mainly by James Madison, who wrote the U.S. Constitution in 1781. So I wonder what other countries think about the United States and the Republican Party, that there's a political force in America, a party, that has someone who wants to be president that doesn't even know the goddamn history of his own country. I mean, this is unbelievable. And, oh, by the way, he's polling second. And the guy that's doing all the lying about the Muslims and creating the stereotypes, he's the liar. You can't get around it. And the unfortunate thing of it all is that they use the Democrats as bait. They ask Bernie Sanders, well, what do you think about Donald Trump? That's all the media tries to do, is to try to get people to talk shit about other candidates instead of talking about the issues about what's going on. Oh, by the way, the State Department has issued a global terror threat that this country is now on high alert. This is Director of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson.
We know of no specific credible threat of a Paris-like attack directed against the U.S. homeland. We are, and we continue to be, and we have been concerned about copycat-like attacks. As long as terrorist organizations are calling for attacks in the homeland, we've got to all be vigilant and work overtime.
Secretary of State John Kerry, the latest to be the cheerleader on how we're going to defeat ISIS.
I believe ISIS is going to be defeated. ISIS is not 10 feet tall. There is a united front, and I am absolutely convinced that Daesh will be defeated, and there will be increased steps taken in order to do so. And what we need to do is not succumb to fear. People need to not panic. There is a strategy in place growing by the day.
That growing by the day comes from the Brits. Prime Minister David Cameron said this.
The United Kingdom will do all in our power to support our friend and ally France to defeat this evil death cult. I firmly support the action that President Hollande has taken to strike ISIL in Syria, and it's my firm conviction that Britain should do so too.
You know, the right-wing talkers of America just can't get enough of failure right now. The French are in the game. The Russians are in the game. And, of course, the French president is going to be meeting with the President of the United States today, and they're going to be talking about the Russian involvement. And one of the things that President Obama is going to try to do is to get the French to hold Vladimir Putin's feet to the fire on Crimea and the Ukraine, and to keep the sanctions in place, because next month those sanctions run out. Putin is going to try to strike a deal with the French. We're going to continue to hit ISIS. But can you please lessen the grip on us when it comes to these sanctions on our big businesses in Russia because of our involvement in Crimea and what we have done in the Ukraine? There's some interesting global dynamics playing out on who the partners are. But here's the bottom line. Striking ISIS now, there are 3 more countries that weren't there 30 days ago. And that's Russia, and that's France, and now the Brits are going to get in the game in a big way. The pressure is on the President of the United States to change his strategy, and so here comes John Kerry out as Secretary of State cheerleading, saying that we will defeat them. In the meantime, our guard is up. Still, across this country, there aren't people who are ready to send troops, boots on the ground, to do the job. When is that day coming? More coming up here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. We're going to talk about the Bernie Sanders campaign. Bob Shrum will also join us. And in the Bernie Sanders campaign, Senator Nina Turner, former senator of Ohio, joins us to talk about her involvement with Sanders and why she is endorsing Sanders over Clinton. That's next. Stay with us. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com, www.biogreenclean, and order today. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Good to have you back with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. It is now, of course, the time for endorsements. We're just a couple of months away from the Iowa caucus, and the fact of the matter is that endorsements do matter. Boots on the ground, I think, matter a heck of a lot more than endorsements. But this is a combination of sorts. State Senator Nina Turner of Ohio has turned and gone with Bernie Sanders in the Sanders campaign as a big endorsement. She's also worked in the state of South Carolina, helping the senator get better connected with the African-American community. And in the recent polling out there, Bernie Sanders has gone up 16 points with minorities in this country, while Hillary Clinton has dropped 11 points. For more on that, we bring in Nina Turner. Senator, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you, Ed.
Why Bernie Sanders?
Well, he is the public servant of our time. You know, once I got a chance to be introduced to him like so many other Americans, and you tune out the noise, you find out that this is a man who has had a righteous indignation for the working poor and middle class of our country for well over 30 years, for his entire career. He is a champion of the people, and he's unashamed. He has that fire in the belly, and he will transform this nation. And so for me, Ed, he really spoke to my heart once I had a chance to really just kind of peel it back. I had the opportunity to talk to the senator, to hear from him as to why he is running this race, to make sure that people who have been left behind in this country are lifted in a very profound way. And, you know, I had to go where my heart led me, and so that is why I'm endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders, or I have endorsed Senator Sanders.
Is he making gains in the African-American communities in this country?
He is, and, you know, he was just in Atlanta today. He, you know, visited the MLK Memorial. He's been spending lots of time across the country in the African-American community. People should not count him out. We got to remember that he is the senator from Vermont, which is a very small state in the United States of America. Most of the population is not of color, is actually white. And so he has not had the benefit of having a national profile. But what we find is that the more people hear him and get a chance to see him, they begin to change their mind. You know, he was just in Cleveland last Monday, a week ago, yesterday, as a matter of fact, and well over 10,000 people showed up at the Cleveland State University. A lot of those folks, young people in their 20s, but there were some millennials of color in that audience as well. And so we just have to make sure that the senator gets the exposure that he needs, that he gets the introduction to the American people, particularly the African-American and Hispanic community, and we will see him turn this thing around.
What are the big issues in Ohio that Bernie Sanders could connect on that would turn the African-American vote in his favor in your state? And, of course, if anybody wants to win the White House, they got to win Ohio. I believe that you're one of the biggest endorsements that Bernie Sanders has and could get. With the tireless work that you have done and the advocacy that you have done, your credibility is immense with many people in Ohio. What is it? What are the issues that would bring African-American voters and people of color to Bernie Sanders?
Well, thank you. And I think his racial justice platform, which is more comprehensive than any other candidate that's running to become the president of the United States. I mean, in Cleveland, Bernie Sanders, Senator Sanders said that he, as president of the United States, will do everything that he can to eradicate institutional racism. I mean, the crowd went crazy, and even though that crowd was predominantly not of color, it was the 20-something white young people that are attracted to the senator. His message was this: that together as Americans, whether you're black or white, this is our job to fight for this. I've never heard anybody say that, not even our current president, to stand there to say that he will work tirelessly to try to eradicate institutional racism. You know, he talks about in his criminal justice or his racial justice platform the acknowledgement that this country has been unfair to African Americans and the Hispanic community and poor people, and that there are 4 pillars that he is going to fight for. It's physical, political, legal, and economic, that he calls those the 4 central types of violence that have been waged against our black and brown citizens. And he is laying it out there. He talked about the relationship or lack thereof between communities of color and law enforcement. And as you know, in Ohio, Ed, especially in Cleveland, we lost young Tamir Rice a year ago this past Sunday, and John Crawford in Cincinnati. There's been a slew of police violence, unarmed black men and women being shot and killed at the hands of police. Senator Sanders addressed that head on. He didn't apologize for it. He addressed it head on. And he basically said this: we're going to have justice and accountability and transparency. There are good police officers, but the system has been unfair to African Americans. I mean, it was a thing of beauty. And the more people hear that, if you are a fair-minded person of any ethnicity, you would have to say that this is the right thing to do, that we as a nation must address this. We cannot stand for injustice for anybody. Yeah. And Senator Sanders is talking about that.
One of the things that Senator Sanders has been paramount on is voting rights.
Yes.
And you, of course, have done a lot of work in Ohio and around the country on that issue. That and the fact that he doesn't take super PAC money.
That's right.
And Citizens United and getting the big money out of politics and having the little folks have a voice. Do these issues connect with people of color? I mean, when he was in Cleveland, did those issues connect? Do you see this really growing in the state of Ohio?
Oh, I do. I do, Ed. He had a small clutch afterwards, and the majority of the room was of color, was African Americans, and there was a young activist who said to Senator Sanders, he said, "I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that Senator Turner is on your side, and I what you had to say out there really speaks to me." His name is Bashir Jones, and he is a young activist here in the city of Cleveland. And to have him say those words to the senator is very powerful. Now, you multiply him. So you take him and the fact now that he is a believer in Senator Sanders, he's going to go out there and talk to his peers, and he has the street credibility. This is a Morehouse graduate, born and raised in the city of Cleveland, went to college as an activist, using his gifts to lift people. He had the opportunity to hear Senator Sanders speak and preach the gospel of uplift and what he would do as a leader. Those things speak. And so we have to get the senators in more situations like that, so we multiply his message so that millennials of all ethnicities get a chance to hear him, to vibe with him when he talks about making sure that college is free, so that our young people, public college is free, so that they're not saddled by debt, so that they have a future in front of them instead of being saddled with that. That speaks to them too. So he is making ground. He needs more surrogates. We got to get him more into the African American community, which he is doing that. But for everybody that hears from him, for the most part, he wins them over. Well, the surrogates are you and Larry Cohen and Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, with the amount of attention that the campaign is actually getting in the mainstream media, it seems like Bernie can handle most of it. There's not a slew of surrogates who are out there. I don't know how that plays or what it's going to mean. I do know that your credibility is hard to match, and so is Larry Cohen's when it comes in the labor world. Bernie Sanders was asked about the truth, and he was asked about what kind of campaign it would be if he were up against Donald Trump. Here it is.
Well, I would hope that in our democracy in the United States of America, the truth does matter. The truth will matter. And trust me, if I run against Donald Trump, he will, and the American people will learn the truth. And that is that Donald Trump should not be president of the United States. that we have to reinvigorate American democracy, that we have got to create an economy that works for the middle class and not just the top 1%. So there's nothing more that I would enjoy than the opportunity to take on Donald Trump and expose many of the fabrications that he has brought forth.
And Nina Turner, what is the possibility of that becoming a reality? What has to happen for Bernie Sanders to defeat Hillary Clinton, in your opinion?
Well, we got to get him out more, Ed. That's number one. The secretary has a national profile advantage. There's no doubt about that, and we can't run from that. But what we do have is an extraordinary candidate, and as I said when I introduced him in Cleveland, he is the public servant of our time. He is the person who's saying that I am going to model within my campaign. I'm not going to take PAC money. The only people I'm going to have to answer to are the people, you, the donors, and out there talking about raising the minimum wage, out there talking about when you turn 18 in this country, you should automatically be registered to vote, that your voice is important, talking about how the working poor are being crushed and the middle class is being squeezed. We have to get his message out there, and he will win this. And there was some recent polling that shows that if Senator Sanders goes head-to-head with Mr. Trump, he wins. Yeah. So I'm glad to hear the senator say that he would love to engage and go head-to-head with him because he will win. All right.
Former state senator from Ohio, Nina Turner, great friend of ours here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Keep up the good work, my friend. We'll do it again. Thank you.
You too.
You bet. When we come back, Bob Shrum, longtime Democratic strategist. How does terror play into the campaign? And is that pushing other issues under the rug? That conversation next on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Stay with us.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, Bio Green Clean, and the iSave team bring you this production here on this Tuesday edition of Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Let's turn now to a great friend of mine, Bob Shrum. He's a Democratic strategist, professor at USC. Bob, good to have you with us.
Glad to be here, Ed.
You bet. I can't help but think that Donald Trump in some form is the perfect candidate for any Democrat to go up against. In the last week, we've had the database conversation that he's in favor of that. Now he's out saying that he saw thousands upon thousands of people cheering when the World Trade Center buildings fell down on September 11th. And yet he continues to poll ahead in double digits ahead of Carson, Rubio, and Bush. Bob, have you ever seen anything like this or ever seen a candidate like this?
No, and I think it reflects the fact that the Republican Party and the Republican primary process have been taken over to a greater extent than ever before by the far right, by people who are angry, by people for whom conservatism has become not a set of principles, but a set of grievances and insecurities. And Trump appeals to these folks. Every time he gets called out, on John McCain, attacking John McCain for being shot down, up to the recent stuff this week. He gets called out, the press says, that's it, he's done, and he just maintains his strength. So I think we're going to see him, unless he says something that alienates that base, we're going to see him around for a long time.
What do you make of Rubio and also Bush? What you just said here you almost hear the frustration in their voices and frustration coming from their campaigns, almost in disbelief that Trump is still the leader of the pack. What do you think?
Well, I think there's tremendous frustration on Bush's part. He thought he was going to inherit the nomination, and it's clear that there is profound Bush fatigue in the Republican Party. He also turns out everybody said he was the smarter Bush, the better campaigner than his brother. Turns out that the opposite is the case. Yeah. Now, they still have a lot of money, although the ads they broadcast so far haven't done him much good. He's going to have to perform well. He's not going to do well in Iowa, I don't think. He's going to have to perform well in New Hampshire and then make some kind of real impression, come back in South Carolina, or he could actually, despite all his money, be, whether he's out of the race or not, an absolute also-ran.
It seems like, Bob, the Republican strategy for fighting ISIS is to just demagogue the hell out of it, say you're going to bomb the shit out of them, and that, of course, is what Trump has been saying, and you're going to eliminate him, you're going to throw all the military at him. It's amazing how elementary the conversation is, yet terrorism seems to be trumping the campaign right now. Is this conversation going to continue? Is this going to overshadow a lot of other things that candidates would rather talk about?
Well, it depends on events. I mean, if there is another terrorist attack in Western Europe, or God forbid here, that's successful, it will become a bigger and bigger issue. This is, and I think I've said this to you before, another version of John Kennedy's long twilight struggle. This is not going to get solved in a day. It's not going to get solved in a month. And I think George W. Bush once said it. It's going to a fight that's going to go on for years. And one of the things that was interesting and encouraging in some of the polling data I've seen recently was people trust Hillary Clinton, for example, more than they trust any of the Republicans to deal with terrorism.
Yeah.
But you got to notice how cautious most of them are being. They're going to be tougher. They're going to do more. As you say, they're going to bomb and bomb and bomb, which we're already doing, by the way. Yeah. They're going to bomb and bomb and bomb, but they're very coy about either whether they would put troops on the ground or how many troops they would put on the ground. And they've just passed, the Republican House just passed a bill on Syrian refugees, which would deny entry to the United States or delay it for a very long and dangerous period of time for all those Iraqis who cooperated with us as translators and guides during the Iraq War. So wouldn't it be great? We send boots on the ground, but at the same time we send the message that if you do anything to cooperate with those boots on the ground, with those American troops, you're not going to be taken care of when the fight's over.
As it stands right now, what Republican wins Iowa as you see it?
I think there's a reasonable chance that Ted Cruz will come along and steal Iowa. I know he's not at the top of the list right now, but he's got the endorsement of Steve King, that obscenely anti-immigrant, anti-immigration, anti-Hispanic congressman. And I think as a lot of evangelicals begin to have second thoughts, and I'm talking about conservative evangelicals because, by the way, we use the term too loosely. There are plenty of liberal evangelicals as well. But as long as those kind of really hard right religious voters, the longer they look at Carson, I think the more doubts they're going to have. And the easiest place for them to go is probably Ted Cruz.
It's a race against the calendar for Bernie Sanders to garnish more African-American and people of color support in this country. It's a heavy lift, there's no doubt, but he has gained in the last month some 16 points. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that there is some resistance by a considerable number of people in the Democratic Party to anointing Hillary Clinton as the nominee. I think Bernie Sanders is speaking to some concerns that Democrats have that run very deep. And by the way, it's not just Democrats who are worried, for example, about the influence of special interest money in the process or how we're going to deal with the big banks. So I think he's got that appeal, and I think it's a very strong appeal. The communities of color don't really know him. They don't know, for example, that he was involved in the civil rights movement from almost the very beginning. And they also really like Hillary Clinton. They always have. They were with her at this point in the process, even against Barack Obama. in 2008. It was only when he started winning in Iowa and New Hampshire, and then they moved to him in South Carolina and moved to him kind of decisively across the country, that is, African Americans did. So look, he says it himself. If it were held today, he would lose. It's an uphill battle. I think it's likely that very likely Hillary Clinton's going to be the nominee. And when that happens, anybody who cares about a progressive future in this country is, in my view, obligated to go out there and fight for her.
Bob Shrum, all good. How's life? I haven't talked to you for a while.
Life's great. I'm out here in California. Weather's nice. I think it was like 75 today, although it's going to cool off, Ed. It's going to cool off to like 58 on Thanksgiving Day.
Happy Thanksgiving, my friend. Eat
Happy
all the turkey in the world. You bet. Nice to visit. Bob Shrum, Democratic strategist, longtime friend of me and our work. Ed Schultz News and Commentary brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSafe team. We're back tomorrow.